In 1999, a hunter vanished into the forest and was missing for almost 7 years. The forest kept a deadly secret. But when his body was finally discovered in an abandoned well, the autopsy revealed a nightmare. Hands and feet tied, skull fractured, and 7 stab wounds to the chest and abdomen. Forensic experts later confirmed it wasn't an accident. This was a calculated murder. Every detail, the bound limbs, the hidden well, the blood-stained jacket, pointed to a killer who thought the forest could hide his crime forever. Would the killer be found? Would justice be served? If you are comfortable, kindly tell us the time and where you are watching from. Do subscribe too. Let's go on. At the end of October, Ryan Cooper loaded up his old Chevrolet pickup and set off toward the Appalachian Mountains. Deer season had just begun, and as he'd done every fall for years, Ryan planned to spend several days hunting alone in the woods. His wife, Megan, knew exactly where he was headed, the northern stretch of the Nantahala National Forest in North Carolina, where he always camped near an old forest road he liked. Ryan worked as a mechanic at a small gas station in Pine, a quiet mountain town where everyone knew everyone. He and Megan had raised 2 children there, both grown now and living out of state. Before he left, Ryan told Megan he'd be home by Sunday, October 18th. She remembered helping him load his things into the back of the truck, his hunting rifle, a sleeping bag, a few cans of food, and his old thermos of coffee. He seemed relaxed that morning, in good spirits, smiling, humming under his breath, eager to disappear into the silence of the forest for a few days. Megan watched as the truck disappeared down the road, not knowing it would be the last time she'd ever see her husband. On October 15th, Ryan made his usual stop at the gas station to see his boss, James Parker. He mentioned that he'd be taking a few days off for his annual hunting trip and would be back by Monday. Parker was used to it. Ryan never missed a season, so he simply nodded and wished him luck. Around noon, Ryan stopped at a local sporting goods store to buy ammunition. The clerk, Michael Green, would later tell investigators that Ryan seemed calm and in good spirits, even cracking a small joke about finally getting a break from the noise of town life. Nothing about him seemed off. After lunch, Ryan hit the road. His old Chevrolet rattled along Highway 19 before turning onto a narrow series of mountain roads that led deep into the Nantahala National Forest. His plan was the same as every year. Drive to the ranger station, then take the old forest road that ended near a clearing thick with trees. That's where he liked to park, and set up camp before hiking deeper into the woods. By Friday evening, Megan wasn't concerned. Ryan always spent nights in the forest, especially when the weather was clear. When Saturday came and went with no call, she still wasn't alarmed. He had a habit of losing track of time when he was out there, chasing deer through miles of ridges and valleys, unreachable by phone signal. But by Sunday night, something felt different. The silence wasn't peaceful anymore. It was heavy, like the forest itself was holding its breath. Years later, investigators would realize that silence wasn't just coincidence. It was the first sign something had gone terribly wrong. By Sunday evening, when Tom still hadn't come home or even called, Megan's unease turned into real fear. He never stayed out of touch this long. Still, she reminded herself, Tom didn't carry a cell phone. He always said they were useless in the mountains, where signal barely existed anyway. By Monday morning, October 19th, she couldn't wait any longer. Megan called the Ridge County Sheriff's Office and filed a missing person report. The deputy on duty promised that a search team would be sent out that afternoon. She described her husband carefully. 6'1", about 180 pounds, graying brown hair, brown eyes. He'd been wearing his orange hunting jacket, jeans, and a pair of worn brown boots. That afternoon, the first search team entered the dense forest near the Nantahala Range. Within hours, they spotted Tom's blue Chevrolet pickup parked at the end of a remote forest road. It was exactly where he'd usually leave it, except this time, something felt off. The truck was locked. The keys lay neatly on the driver's seat, as if placed there on purpose. In the back were all of Tom's supplies, a rolled-up sleeping bag, a backpack with canned food, a thermos, and his Ruger hunting rifle still loaded and untouched. That detail chilled everyone. Tom never went into the woods unarmed. If he wasn't carrying his rifle, where had he gone and why did he leave it behind? Megan had once told friends that Tom felt safest in the woods. Ironically, it was the place he would vanish without a trace. As the daylight began to fade, searchers fanned out from the clearing. They expected to find footprints, maybe a trail. But what they discovered instead would raise more questions than answers. Deputy Sheriff Mark Benson led the search that afternoon. But the moment he looked inside the blue Chevrolet, his gut told him something was very wrong. Any seasoned hunter knew better than to leave a loaded rifle behind, especially in the mountains. Even stranger, the sleeping bag and backpack filled with food hadn't been touched. It looked as though Tom had stepped out of the truck and simply vanished, without taking a single thing he'd need to survive the night. The search team that day was small but determined. 4 deputies and 4 local volunteers from the Ridge County Search and Rescue Unit. They moved methodically through the forest, fanning out in a wide spiral around the clearing. Every few yards, one of them called out Tom's name, their voices fading into the quiet stretch of trees. The weather worked in their favor. Clear skies, cool air around 50 degrees, and fallen yellow leaves that made it easier to spot movement or footprints. But hour after hour, nothing turned up. No tracks, no broken branches, no signs of an animal attack, nothing at all. As the sun sank behind the ridge, the forest grew darker and colder. The team regrouped near the truck, exhausted and uneasy. Benson ordered everyone back to base, promising to resume the search at first light. Megan's words echoed in his head. Tom wasn't the type to get lost. He knew these woods better than anyone. Yet that night, as the team reviewed the day's findings, one question kept gnawing at Benson. If Tom never made it far from his truck, why hadn't they found a single trace of where he went? By Tuesday, the search had grown significantly. More volunteers joined, including Tom's neighbors and co-workers from the gas station. The search radius expanded to 4 miles, and teams methodically combed every stream, ravine, cave, and rock ledge they could find. On Wednesday, the 3rd day, a dog team arrived from a neighboring county. 2 highly trained German shepherds picked up Tom's scent near the truck, but after a few hundred yards the trail vanished. It was as if he had simply disappeared into thin air. Dog handler David Miller cautioned that the scent could have been lost for many reasons. Rain, wind, or perhaps Tom had somehow reached another vehicle. Still, the news offered little comfort. By the end of the first week, over 70 people were involved in the search. Local residents brought hot meals to the crews, and posters with Tom's photo appeared on telephone poles and store windows around town. Megan came to the site every day, refusing to leave. She told anyone who would listen that her husband could never get lost in these woods. He knew every trail, every hidden path like the back of his hand. Search parties checked every known route within a 5-mile radius of the truck. They scoured abandoned cabins, old gold mining shafts, and even derelict farms on the forest's edge. Still, there was nothing. No sign of a struggle, no torn clothing, no dropped personal items, nothing to suggest where Tom had gone. The untouched rifle in his truck now seemed even stranger, a silent hint that he hadn't planned to leave. As the first week ended, the searchers faced a chilling possibility. Tom hadn't just gone missing, he might have vanished in a way that no one could explain. In the second week, the search widened even further. A Coast Guard helicopter joined the effort, flying over every corner of the dense forest. The pilots focused on the hard-to-reach areas, using a thermal imager capable of detecting a body even under a thick layer of leaves. Yet, despite the advanced technology, the aerial search yielded nothing. Sheriff Thomas Johnson took personal command of the case. He interviewed every local resident who might have seen Tom's blue Chevrolet that day. Several people remembered spotting the truck on the mountain road around 3 p.m. on October 16th, but no one had seen the driver. During hunting season, vehicles like Tom's were so common in the area that most people didn't pay much attention. Investigators also considered the possibility of an accident. The forest was dotted with deep gorges where someone could easily fall. Rescue climbers checked every accessible crevice and canyon, but they found no trace of Tom. The team even explored the possibility of a bear attack. Black bears were known to roam the Appalachians in the fall, preparing for hibernation, and could be aggressive if provoked. Still, there were no signs of a struggle, no tracks, no torn clothing, nothing to suggest an animal encounter. Tom had always told Megan he respected the forest and knew how to avoid danger, yet every lead seemed to contradict that confidence. By the end of the second week, the case grew colder by the hour. If neither accidents nor wildlife explained his disappearance, then what, or who, was responsible for Tom vanishing without a trace? By mid-November, after 2 grueling weeks of searching, Sheriff Johnson was forced to officially suspend the operation. The first snow had already blanketed the forest, making further searches nearly impossible. Tom Cooper's disappearance was now officially classified as unsolved. The case remained open in name only, but Megan couldn't accept it. Even after the search was called off, she returned to the forest every weekend, hoping for some sign, some clue that might explain her husband's vanishing. She parked near the clearing where Tom's pickup had been found, and walked the trails for hours, examining every bush, every rock. Friends and neighbors warned her to stop, fearing for her safety. But Megan refused to give up. The winter of 1999 to 2000 was harsh. Snow covered the mountains until mid-March, halting any chance of further searching. As soon as the thaw came, Megan returned with renewed determination. She drew detailed maps of all previously searched areas and meticulously combed every place the teams might have overlooked. Occasionally, Sheriff Johnson sent patrols into the forest to investigate new leads, and deputies questioned tourists and hunters, but no one could provide any useful information. Slowly, the case faded from public attention, though Tom's photograph still hung on the sheriff's office bulletin board, a quiet reminder of a mystery that refused to be solved. In the summer of 2000, a small fire swept through the forest, burning roughly 5 acres of underbrush and small trees. Foresters surveyed the scorched area afterward and found only animal bones. No trace of Tom Cooper, no sign of what had happened to him. Despite everything, the untouched rifle in his truck continued to haunt Megan's thoughts, proof that Tom had not planned to leave, yet he was gone. The forest held its secrets tight, and somewhere, hidden beneath snow or brush, something remained, something that might finally explain the disappearance that had baffled an entire county. Megan went to inspect the ashes herself, but found nothing, just the cold, empty forest. In the fall of 2000, exactly 1 year after Tom's disappearance, a local hunter named Hunter Cole called the sheriff's department with a tip. While hunting, he had noticed a peculiar patch of grass, greener and thicker than the surrounding area. Cole suggested it could indicate the presence of organic matter in the soil. Deputy Sheriff Benson investigated the site and found the area suspicious. Shovels were brought in, and the team began digging. At about 3 feet down, they uncovered a large flat stone, clearly placed there by human hands. Beneath it was a hole, but it was empty. Only a few small animal bones and some old tin cans were inside. It appeared to have been used as a dumping spot long ago. When Megan arrived at the dig, her hope turned to disappointment. Nothing there explained what had happened to her husband. By 2001, public interest in the case had finally waned. A new sheriff had taken over and was focused on rising thefts and a surge of drug trafficking in neighboring counties. Resources that had once been devoted to finding Tom were redirected to more immediate crimes. Yet even as the county moved on, Megan couldn't stop thinking about the abandoned rifle in Tom's truck, a reminder that he hadn't planned to disappear. The forest still held secrets no one had uncovered, and somewhere out there the truth about Tom Cooper's disappearance waited, hidden in a place no one had yet dared to look. Megan continued searching, though less frequently than before. She hired a private investigator from Asheville, hoping for new leads, but after a month of work, the detective came up empty-handed. He cautiously suggested that Ryan might have chosen to start a new life and deliberately vanish. Megan refused to accept that explanation. She knew her husband better than anyone. He would never leave without telling her. In 2002, Megan moved to Georgia to live with her daughter. She sold the Pine House, using part of the proceeds to continue funding private investigators and search efforts. Before leaving, she made one final visit to the site of Ryan's disappearance. His old pickup truck had already been removed from the impound lot and sold at auction. The clearing where it had once stood was overgrown with tall grass, the memory of his presence slowly fading. Spring 2006 brought an unexpected development. Forestry workers clearing fallen trees from a stream bed a few miles from the original site discovered a human skull. It was sent for forensic analysis, which confirmed it belonged to a Caucasian male between the ages of 45 and 60. For years, Megan had combed these woods, convinced the forest held answers about her husband's fate. Now, the forest had offered a clue, though it was unclear whether it was his. Could this skull finally solve the mystery of Ryan Cooper's disappearance, or was it only the beginning of a deeper, more unsettling story? Fleegan flew in from Georgia as soon as she heard the news. The forensic examination indicated that the skull had been in the ground for 6 to 7 years, matching the time frame of Ryan's disappearance. Yet, identification was impossible. The skull was badly damaged, with teeth partially destroyed. At the time, DNA testing was expensive and not always reliable, especially for remains in such a state of decomposition. The search was resumed, this time concentrated around the location where the skull had been found. Teams used metal detectors across a half-mile radius, hoping to uncover personal items, Tom's wedding ring, watch, or metal clothing fasteners. But the effort yielded nothing. 2 weeks later, the operation was once again called off. Meanwhile, leadership at the Sheriff's Department had changed. New Sheriff David Harris began reviewing all unsolved cases from the past decade, and Ryan Cooper's disappearance quickly stood out as one of the most perplexing. Harris personally examined all the existing files and concluded that the original search had been thorough, but he suspected some critical details might have been missed. He instructed Detective Jack Stevens to re-interview everyone connected to Ryan, friends, neighbors, and colleagues, in hopes of uncovering something that had previously gone unnoticed. After years of dead ends, the forest and its secrets remained stubbornly silent, much like the untouched rifle and abandoned truck that had started it all. Could a fresh look at old witnesses finally reveal the truth, or was Ryan Cooper's fate destined to remain a mystery? During the renewed interviews, some intriguing details emerged. Several neighbors recalled that Ryan had an ongoing dispute with a local man named Victor Hale, who lived a few miles from the Cooper property. The conflict revolved around property boundaries. Hale claimed Ryan had illegally erected a fence, enclosing part of his land. The disagreement had dragged on for years, even reaching the courts, but was never fully resolved. Witnesses remembered heated arguments between the two men, and on one occasion it had nearly escalated into a physical fight. Detective Jack Stevens decided it was time to speak directly with Hale. The 54-year-old carpenter lived alone in an old farmhouse on the forest's edge, about 2 miles from where Ryan had vanished. Neighbors described Hale as withdrawn and quick-tempered, someone who preferred confrontation over conversation. When Stevens arrived, Hale appeared uneasy. Asked where he had been on the day Ryan disappeared, he shrugged and said he didn't remember. He admitted he had heard about Ryan's disappearance, but had never taken part in the search. After all, the men had never gotten along. Hale added that he often hunted in the same forest, but insisted he had not been there that day. The same forest where Ryan had vanished, where his truck, rifle, and supplies had been left untouched, was also a place Hale frequented, deepening the mystery. Could this long-running dispute hold the key to what happened to Ryan Cooper? Or was it just another dead end in a case that had confounded investigators for years? Detective Stevens noticed that Hale kept changing his story, almost as if trying to stick to a pre-planned version of events. At first, he claimed he had been working in his workshop on the day Ryan disappeared. Later, he said he had visited relatives in a nearby town. Stevens documented every contradiction, but at the time it wasn't enough to press any charges. 2 years later, in the spring of 2008, the investigation took an unexpected turn. A group of local teenagers decided to explore abandoned buildings in the forest for a school history project. Among them were 15-year-old Tyson Cole, his younger brother Logan, and their friend Connor Lee. They were familiar with several old farms that had been deserted in the 1960s, when many families left the area for the cities. One of these abandoned farms lay about a mile from where the human skull had been found and 2 miles from the clearing where Ryan's pickup had been discovered. The boys planned to photograph the ruins and collect information about the former owners. This particular property belonged to the O'Brien family, who had grown tobacco and kept a small herd of cows. The forest had already hidden Ryan's fate once, and now it would conceal another secret, just waiting to be uncovered. What the teenagers would stumble upon at the old O'Brien farm would send shockwaves through the decades-old investigation, reopening a case many had thought cold. After the death of the elder O'Brien in 1972, his children sold the land to the forestry department, leaving the buildings abandoned. By 2008, only the stone foundations of the main house, a crumbling barn, and an old well remained. The well sat a short distance from the main buildings, nestled in a small grove. Lined with stone and roughly 20 feet deep, the well had once been covered by a wooden lid. By the time the teenagers arrived, the lid had long rotted and collapsed. In its place, someone had set a heavy concrete slab, completely sealing the opening. Tyson Cole was the first to notice something unusual. The slab appeared far newer than the moss-covered stones around it. The boys tried to move it, but quickly realized it was far too heavy. They scavenged an old iron pipe from the barn and used it as a lever. After 30 grueling minutes, they managed to shift the slab just enough to create a narrow gap. Jason shone his flashlight into the opening and froze. At first he thought he was seeing rocks or debris, but a closer look revealed human bones at the bottom. The boys immediately stopped their efforts and raced into town to alert the sheriff's department. After years of dead ends, from the abandoned truck to the skull found miles away, the forest had finally revealed a hidden secret that had lain buried for decades. Whose remains were these, and could they finally solve the decades-old mystery of Ryan Cooper's disappearance? Detective Stevens arrived at the abandoned O'Brien farm just 20 minutes after the teenagers' call, accompanied by a team of technical experts and a forensic photographer. The first step was to secure the area. Yellow caution tape cordoned off the well, and the photographer began capturing every angle of the site. The concrete slab sealing the well was noticeably newer than the moss-covered stones of the well itself. Clean edges and no growth indicated it had been placed relatively recently. Specialized equipment was brought in to lift the slab. A crane operator carefully hooked steel cables around it and raised it slowly. Beneath the slab lay a complete human skeleton, partially covered with dirt and fallen leaves. Despite the decay, it was immediately clear these were human remains. Forensic expert Dr. Abigail Hay descended into the well on safety ropes for a closer look. Her first observation was chilling. The skeleton's hands were tied behind its back, and the ankles were bound as well. An accident was no longer a possibility. This was deliberate. Even more disturbing, there were 2 large holes in the skull, one in the temporal region and another in the occipital region. Dr. Washington suggested these had been caused by a blunt object, indicating violent trauma. From the abandoned truck to the missing rifle, and now to a skeleton with bound hands, the forest had been hiding the grim truth about Ryan Cooper all along. Who had done this? And was this finally the key to solving the decades-old disappearance, or just the beginning of an even darker story? Dr. Washington's examination of the skeleton revealed additional injuries. Several cuts on the ribs suggested possible knife wounds, though the exact cause of death would require detailed laboratory analysis. Fragments of clothing were scattered nearby, pieces of denim and remnants of leather boots. The metal components, buttons, zippers, and belt buckles, were heavily corroded but still recognizable. A leather wallet remained in the jeans pocket, damaged by moisture but still recoverable for identification. When the skeleton was brought to the surface, it became clear that it belonged to a man of medium height and build. Preliminary estimates placed the age between 50 and 60 years, parameters that matched Ryan Cooper. Final confirmation, however, would require DNA testing or dental records. Detective Stevens immediately contacted Megan Cooper in Georgia. She arrived in Pine the following day, bringing Ryan's medical records, including dental x-rays, as well as DNA samples, hair from Ryan's comb that she had preserved for years. Meanwhile, the wallet provided the first concrete confirmation. Despite the water damage, the driver's license number was recoverable and it matched Ryan Cooper. The wallet also contained remnants of banknotes and a credit card, further confirming the identity of the remains. From the abandoned truck to the mysterious skull found years earlier, every clue finally converged on the truth. Ryan had been in the forest all along. While the identity of the remains was confirmed, the circumstances of his death, the ties, the skull fractures, the knife wounds, raised a chilling question: who had done this, and why? The remains were now almost certainly those of Ryan Cooper. Dental examination confirmed it beyond doubt. Dr. James Kilpatrick compared the skeleton's teeth with Ryan's old X-rays and found a perfect match. An old filling in the upper left molar was identical, leaving no question. DNA testing at the state laboratory finalized the confirmation. With the identity established, the case immediately shifted from a missing person investigation to a homicide. Sheriff Harris personally took charge and appointed Detective Stevens to lead the murder inquiry. Their first step was to review the circumstances of Ryan's disappearance and begin compiling a list of potential suspects. Forensic analysis revealed the gruesome details of Ryan's death. He had suffered 7 stab wounds to the chest and abdomen, 3 of which pierced vital organs. Blunt force trauma to the head, likely caused by a hammer or heavy stone, suggested he had been struck before being finished off with a knife. The rope binding his hands and feet turned out to be ordinary household cord, sold at any hardware store. The knots were simple, showing no specialized knowledge or professional skill. Whoever had done this had not been a professional killer. They had acted with opportunity, force, and intent. From the abandoned truck with the untouched rifle to the hidden well, each clue now painted a terrifying picture of what Ryan had endured. The question now was clear. Who had committed this brutal crime in the remote forest, and could they still be living among the locals, waiting for the past to be forgotten? Forensic evidence made it clear. Ryan had not been killed in the well. There was far too little blood for the number of stab wounds. He had been murdered elsewhere, and his body was transported to the well, where it was dumped. The heavy concrete slab placed on top suggested premeditation. The killer knew the area and had carefully planned how to conceal the crime. Detective Stevens began compiling a chronology. Ryan disappeared on the afternoon of October 16, 1999, and his remains were discovered on April 3, 2008. During that nearly 9-year span, someone had managed to bring a massive concrete slab to the abandoned farm and position it over the well. The slab was far too heavy for a single person to move. It would have required machinery or multiple accomplices. Investigators canvassed the area, questioning local residents who might have seen or heard anything unusual. The farm was remote, but hunters and berry pickers occasionally passed through. Several witnesses remembered seeing a truck near the old farm in late 1999 or early 2000, though none could recall the make or license plate. Attention quickly turned to Victor Hale. His farm was just 2 miles from where Ryan's body had been found. Hale owned a truck equipped with a crane, which he regularly used for transporting lumber and installing wooden structures. Such equipment could easily have lifted the heavy concrete slab and placed it over the well. From the missing rifle to the hidden well, the pieces of the puzzle increasingly pointed toward someone familiar with the forest and its secrets. Could Victor Hale have been the one to plan and execute this brutal crime? Or was there someone else hiding in plain sight, waiting for nearly a decade to be discovered? When Detective Stevens paid another visit to Victor Hale, the man grew visibly more anxious. Asked if he had ever been to the old O'Brien farm, Hale first said no, then backtracked, admitting he might have driven past it. He insisted he knew nothing about the concrete slab and had never seen the well. Stevens requested permission to search Hale's house and workshop. Hale a Cooper, though his unease was obvious. In the workshop, Stevens discovered several concrete slabs matching the exact size and shape of the one covering the well. Hale claimed he used them as bases for wooden structures but couldn't recall how many slabs he originally had. The crane-equipped truck was parked in the garage. Though old, it was in good working condition. Stevens noticed scratches and dents on the vehicle, which Hale explained away as normal wear from work. The detective photographed the truck from every angle and requested permission to take paint samples for further analysis, documenting the evidence meticulously. The same type of crane truck and matching concrete slabs that could have concealed Ryan's remains were now directly linked to Hale's property. Could this be the breakthrough needed to finally tie Victor Hale to Ryan Cooper's murder? Or would he manage to escape scrutiny once again? The most revealing discovery came in the attic of Hale's house. Climbing up, Stevens found a cluttered space filled with old furniture, boxes of papers, and hunting equipment. Tucked in a corner beneath a pile of blankets, he spotted an orange hunting jacket, the same size and style Ryan Cooper had worn on the day he vanished. Hale insisted the jacket was his, purchased years earlier from a local store, but Stevens noticed dark stains on the fabric that resembled dried blood. Despite Hale's protests, the detective seized the jacket for forensic testing. He also collected DNA samples from Hale, including hair strands and a scraping from inside his mouth. The results were explosive. DNA analysis confirmed the blood on the jacket belonged to Ryan Cooper, and the blood type matched his medical records. The jacket was now direct evidence linking Hale to the murder. Confronted with the findings, Hale first denied ownership of the jacket and claimed ignorance about how it ended up in his attic. Then he suggested he might have bought it second-hand from a local hunter, but he could not explain why Ryan's blood was on it. Detective Stevens obtained a warrant for Hale's arrest on suspicion of murder. On April 10, 2008, early in the morning, Hale was taken into custody at his home without resistance. He claimed innocence and requested a lawyer. A thorough search of the property yielded a large amount of physical evidence, which was seized for further examination. From the abandoned truck to the hidden well and now the blood-stained jacket, every clue finally pointed to Victor Hale. Could this be the final piece of the puzzle? Or would the investigation uncover even more shocking secrets hidden in the forest? Hale spent 3 days in a holding cell, refusing to speak. His lawyer, Mark Daniel, argued that the evidence was entirely circumstantial. The jacket could have ended up in Hale's attic in multiple ways, and there was no proof placing him at the old O'Brien farm on the day of Ryan's disappearance. The breakthrough came when investigators returned to Hale's workshop for a meticulous examination. Using luminol, a chemical that glows in the presence of blood, experts uncovered a large stain on the floor. The area had been cleaned, but traces of blood remained in the cracks between the wooden boards. DNA analysis confirmed the blood belonged to Ryan Cooper, proving that the murder had occurred in the workshop itself. A knife with a deer antler handle was also recovered. Microscopic analysis revealed blood and bone fragments on the blade that matched the wounds on Ryan's skeleton. Confronted with this irrefutable evidence, Hale finally asked Cooper to give a full statement. On April 16th, in the presence of his lawyer and Detective Stevens, Hale confessed. He recounted in detail how Ryan Cooper had been murdered, providing a chilling account that explained every aspect of a case that had remained unsolved for nearly 9 years. From the abandoned truck and untouched rifle to the hidden well and blood-stained jacket, every clue now converged, leading straight to Hale and the dark truth of Ryan's death. The confession would finally reveal the motive and method behind the murder, but the full story of what happened in those fateful hours was about to shock everyone who had followed the case. If you like these stories of ours, kindly subscribe for more videos. Thank you.